Hi, I'm Andy Burk, and we're going to tie a bird's nest nymph. The bird's nest was created by Burk from Reno, Nevada, and has grown into one of the most popular nymphs in the Sierra. And it's slowly taking over the United States and the rest of the world too. It's an incredibly productive fly. It's relatively easy to tie, and you should have some in your box. To tie this fly, we're going to need hare's ear dubbing. And you'll notice my hare's ear, I've got a little bit of sparkle fiber, a little bit of ice dub blended in there. Check out on one of our other YouTube videos, we're going to show you a little bit about how to blend really cool dubbing blends like this one. We're going to use wood duck for the hackle and tail of the flies. If you don't have real wood duck, use imitation wood duck, but if you can get your hands on real wood duck, boy, it just looks better, and I don't know if it works better, but I sure think it does. And we're going to rib the fly with a little copper wire. The hook I've chosen is a Tiemco 5262. This is a size 12. Good all-around size for a bird's nest. I'll tie these as big as a size 8 and as small as a size 20. We're also going to weight it with a little bit of 15 thousandths diameter lead wire. I don't weight these really heavy. I just want them to break through the surface film, so I'll put about 12 wraps of lead on there, 15, something like that. Again, that's 15 thousandths. I just want the fly to break through the surface film. Of course, you can also tie this beadhead style. I'm a big fan of the traditional style, but I fish a lot of beadheads on the bird's nest too. You'll notice I start my thread right in the lead after I give the hook shank and the lead a little coat of Dave's Flex-Cement. What that's going to do is, as we tie the fly, we're going to really build a good foundation, and it won't fall apart after one or two fish. You'll be able to catch 15 or 20 fish on this fly before it finally gives up. For the tail, we're going to use a little trick, and I was fortunate enough to watch Cal Bird tie on several different occasions and knew him for quite a few years. I don't tie the bird's nest the way Cal used to. Cal is a very meticulous tyer. I tend to be kind of a fast and sloppy tyer, so you're going to get my version of it, and then I'll show you some out of Cal's fly box. I've just clipped out the center of that wood duck feather, and I'm going to tie that in as the tail. On the bird's nest, I like my tail to be about half the length of the hook shank. Measure and tie it in. Now, don't just trim off the materials at this point, just wrap your thread over them, and they'll help build a smooth base as you build forward on the fly, and it'll make tapering the body a lot easier. And you don't have to waste time cutting stuff. You can use a little bit of small ultra wire, just the regular copper color. The key on this stuff is always finding where the end of it is. Okay, so I'm going to grab a 6 or 8 inch chunk of ultra wire and tie that in like so. Right to the base of the tail. Put that aside. Give the underbody a little coat of Dave's Flex-Cement. Again, I want this fly to last through a bunch of fish, so we're going to build it durably. Take just a little pinch of that hare's ear dubbing and spin it on the thread. Nice light pressure. Don't try to put too much dubbing on at once. Just put on a little bit. It's a lot easier to put on more dubbing than it is to take it off once you get it dubbed on. I'm just going to build a nice tapered body forward to about the 2/3 point of the hook shank right there. Grab your copper wire and rib it with nice evenly spaced turns. 4 or 5 turns there. I just wrap the wire over the lead and then tie it off. Your ribbing will never ever pull out. It might get broken if a fish tooth hits it just right, but it won't break or pull out because you didn't tie it in well. Now we've got that nice little notched chunk of wood duck feather. We can use this to form the hackle of the fly. We'll strip off a few more fibers to even it up. This was the way Cal tied the hackle on his flies. Really neat trick. Great way to do a distribution wrap, particularly for a fly like the bird's nest. We're going to want our hackle to extend just about halfway the length of the tail. So I'm just going to take the feather, push it against the hook shank with my thumb on my left hand, just kind of gather that whole mess together, and the thread, see how the thread chases the feather around? And that'll create a nice distribution wrap. This is a real heavily hackled one. I'm just pull on it a little to adjust it to the length we want. Tie that down. The head of the bird's nest is oversized, so if we've got a little bulk up in the front here, that's just fine. Trim down that excess junk. Wrap over it. Now we're talking. Then we're going to grab a little bit more dubbing. Now the head, as I said, is a little thicker, and Cal always used to tie both the abdomen of the fly and the head of the fly in a dubbing loop. I love dubbing loops, but they're too slow for me. I like to tie a little faster than that. So what I do is I've spun the thread on at the top, spun the dubbing on the thread right here at the top, very tightly, and very tightly down at the bottom, but in the middle I've left the dubbing very loose. I haven't hardly spun it at all with my fingers. So what I'll do is I'll take a turn, and I get just that tightly spun little point of dubbing around the hook shank. Now I'm going to twist the dubbing and the thread together. You see it tighten up there? And that'll form a nice little fake dubbing chenille yarn that you can use to make a nice fuzzy head. Now, one of the best things about the bird's nest is that it's a very impressionistic fly. It looks a little bit like a lot of different stuff. We've got that nice bulky head there. Now I'm just going to take my whip finisher, go ahead and make a nice little whip finish. And the last thing I like to do is, you ever had one of those flies where it gets really chewed up, and the more chewed up and ugly looking it gets, the better it works? The reason for that is all those little dubbing fibers and feather fibers that get displaced when a fish chews on your fly wiggle and move in the current and just add a little extra impression of life. What I do to most of my subsurface flies that I've tied with dubbing bodies, and particularly flies like the bird's nest here that are multi-imitative, impressionistic flies, it could be taken for a caddis, it could be taken for a stonefly nymph, for a mayfly nymph, or just a critter. I'll take a little thing I call a bug brush, and I just make these at home. This is a little opalized wood handle I found out in the middle of the Nevada desert, and I glue on some little stiff wire bristles here, and that is the ticket for scruffing up flies. See, I can just scrape that over and you can see that nice halo effect of loose, shaggy fibers surrounding the head of the fly. And that really brings your fly to life in the water. Adds a lot of translucency, adds a lot of movement and life, and your bird's nest is complete. Just take a little quick spin around here so you can check it out. Boy, that's a fly. If you come to the Truckee River or the Sierra, any of the waters that I fish on a regular basis, you've got to have these in your box. You can check out more at renoflyshop.com. Thanks.